Range in Smash is weird. How can this blue hedgehog outrange a ranged character like Byleth with just his fist? There are many examples where some characters have seemingly more range than other characters, despite the lack of a sword.
What?
But why is this the case?
Why?
For this, we first need to talk about hitboxes and hurtboxes. Almost every time you press an attack or special, your character throws out tiny bubbles or spheres for a shorter or longer period of time. We call these hitboxes. And if they come into contact with your opponent's spheres on the body, the hurtbox, they get hit and receive damage. So in short, the moves the characters throw out have hitboxes and the body of the character has hurtboxes. Usually you would say that a character who has a sword can throw out longer hitboxes than a character without a sword. But we're talking about Smash, and not all hitboxes and hurtboxes are created equal. If we're looking at Duck Hunt for example, we can see that the dog and the duck have a hurtbox, and if we test it out and stab the duck, we can see that this is true. If we're taking a look at another duo, Banjo and Kazooie, we can see that Kazooie has actually no hurtbox and cannot be hit. So technically speaking, Kazooie is just a sword that spits eggs and grenades. DLC privilege. Okay, this is actually half true, because every time Kazooie has her legs on the ground, she suddenly gains a hurtbox and can be hit. You see, this stuff can get kinda complicated, but there are websites for it that visualize every hitbox and hurtbox if you need it. Now that we've learned what hitboxes and hurtboxes are, let's talk about range. On a basic level, we can distinguish 3 levels of range. The characters who fight with their fists like Mario and have a small range, the characters who fight with a sword like Marth and have a longer range, and then there are the characters like Samus who shoot the projectile without a care in the world from the longest range. But range is more complicated than just these 3 levels. Except for the projectiles, there's nothing complicated about shooting a charge shot. Let's talk about our first category of today. Disjointed attacks. These are attacks which offer an extended reach and go further beyond your character's hurtbox. A typical example are sword characters like Lucina. If we look at her forward tilt, we can see that the hitbox goes further than her hurtbox, giving her more space to attack from a safe distance. In contrast, if we look at Bowser's jab for example, you can pretty much see that the hitbox and hurtbox are overlapping. So while Bowser is attacking with a jab, Lucina can attack his arm to damage Bowser from a safe distance. Now it would be pretty easy if I would just say that a sword like Lucina's, a whip like the Belmont's, or a lance like Byleth's equals more range. But we are still talking about Smash. You don't necessarily need a weapon to have more range. Let's look at Ridley for example. Ridley's down tilt has a ton of range, and I know what you're thinking. You could just attack his tail during his attack, just like Bowser's arm during his jab. However, only half of Ridley's tail has a hurtbox, which makes it a disjointed attack. That's right, the developers didn't give Ridley's whole tail a hurtbox and stopped halfway through, which honestly makes a lot of sense. It would really suck to always watch out for your tail during a Now, what about some other moves like up smash? It's true that Ridley attacks with his legs during this move, and they have a hurtbox. However, while the hitboxes are active, the developers decided to give the legs intangibility, which means Ridley's legs cannot get hit during the up smash. This also gives Ridley more room to use his up smash from a safer distance without getting hurt. There are a lot of attacks that have these intangibility frames to turn a move with a seemingly normal range into a pseudo-disjointed attack. There are many more examples of disjointed attacks in Smash where the character doesn't use a weapon, but instead their limbs. And talking about limbs, let's go over to the next type of ranged attacks, which I call stretches. No, not that sort of stretching, that's cheating and I don't like it.
That's right, we're gonna cheat.
Stretches are attacks that offer a sudden burst of range using the character's limbs or body rotations to surprise your opponent. Let's take a look at Incineroar. Incineroar is a brawler type character who specializes in close quarter combat, so you would typically think that this cat doesn't have the best range. However, Incineroar has some moves where it uses its body and shifts or rotates it to gain some extra distance for a short period of time. Let's look at a normal move first. If Incineroar performs a jab, you can see that the jab Incineroar uses is pretty close to its starting position. It is pretty fast, but it doesn't really have a lot of range. Now if we look at another move like forward air, you can see that Sillintor rotates its entire body by 90 degrees and suddenly gets a burst of extra distance. While it is not a disjointed attack, it's still a way to gain some extra range for a short period of time. And there are a few more examples like that, such as Donkey Kong's forward tilt, King K. Rool's forward air, and Snake's back air. But all of these characters seem like they have no range. This sudden burst of extra range can make or break a game. And while I talk about bursting, let's go over to the next topic, burst range. Burst range is the distance where a character can throw out an unreactable attack from the current position. Unreactable is a pretty broad definition because every person's reaction time is different. But let's say the faster the move, the harder it is to react. The average reaction time of a human is somewhere between 200 and 250 milliseconds, or to put it into frames, about 12 to 15 frames. However, if you anticipate a specific attack, this reaction time can be significantly reduced. But there is still a massive problem to this metric. Smash Ultimate has an inbuilt input delay of about 6 frames, even during offline play, which means the game takes 6 frames to register your button press. This is very important to keep in mind. Now I've talked a lot about reaction time, let's get back to the burst range, and for this we take Bayonetta as an example. Bayonetta is standing here and your character is far away. But Bayonetta has her afterburner kick, her aerial side special, to quickly move from one spot to another to attack and hit you. This move is a so-called burst option, because you travel from one spot to another very fast, and the distance she travels where she can successfully hit you is called the burst range. In total, it takes her 10 frames to start her side special, 3 frames for the jump and 7 for the side special. Now 10 frames wouldn't be too bad, but remember that Smash already cuts away 6 frames, so you really don't have a lot of wiggle room to react, no matter how tough you're built. A few examples of burst options are usually dash attacks like Jokers and Greninjas, but there are a wide variety of characters who have other quick movement options, like Terry's Crack Shoot or Diddy Kong's Monkey Flip. What's important about the burst range is that you have to keep in mind from where your opponent can attack you quickly with an unreactable attack. You don't want to get surprised and then receive 50% from a Bayonetta combo because she hit one of her side specials. And not only that, you also have to keep your own options in mind. Just because you've seen a move and can theoretically react in time, doesn't mean you have the right fast option to counter it in this moment. The last topic I want to talk about is what I refer to as weaving. Similar to the stretches earlier, weaving uses the character's body to avoid or get in range of attacks. Both is possible. It usually consists of a tiny step forward or backwards, which is barely noticeable, but it can make a huge difference in outranging your opponent. For this, I am using the very first clip I showed you in this video as an example, and to finally answer the question how Sonic hit Byleth. While Byleth is charging his attack, you can see that he is stepping back. His whole character model shifts a bit more to the left, and as soon as he launches the attack, he steps forward to gain a bit of extra distance to attack the opponent. However, Sonic uses his own forward smash, which makes him weave back a tiny bit on the wind-up. With this, he can barely avoid the attack of Byleth. And as soon as Sonic releases his forward smash, he takes a big step forward to attack with his fist, giving him the bit of extra distance he needs to hit Byleth, while also avoiding the attack at the same time. It is true that Byleth usually has more range than Sonic, but all this going back and forth with each of the character models is what led to this seemingly weird interaction. As you can see, it is not only important what hitboxes you are throwing at your opponent, but also how you can manipulate your own hurtbox to turn the situation into your favor. Sometimes the range in Smash can be weird, but it is an important aspect of the game, which we should not forget, and there is much more nuance to that than just big sword, go brrr. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something in today's video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like, share, comment and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.